Welcome to the Solid Signal Podcast for the week of April 16th, 2018. Back in the office again after an exciting time at the National Association of Broadcasters show. If you didn't read my report, it's at blog.solidsignal.com. And the good news is that I don't think anybody recognized me, and I don't think anybody was really terribly looking for me. Good news if you're the kind of person who criticizes the kind of person who goes to the National Association of Broadcasters show, I suppose. This week we're back on topic with a question that I don't think has been adequately answered yet, even though here we are, 10 years after the digital transition, actually, which took place in early 2009, but was pretty much ready to go in mid-2008. Most high-definition broadcasting is at a resolution of 1920 by 1080, 30 full frames per second. It's called 1080i. Meaning that it's interlaced. You get half the signal, and then you get the other half the signal. That way, you get a nice, complete picture. But ABC and ESPN and Disney-owned stations all use a low resolution, 720p. 720p gives you a resolution of 1280 by 720 at 60 full frames per second, and that was chosen at one time because it was thought it was going to be better for sports, and also really because the lesser amount of data of a 1280 by 720 picture was a little bit more compatible with the hardware that was being developed in the early 2000s. Of course, now it's the 2010s and almost the 2020s, and it's very easy to get 4K on your television or computer monitor. And yet Disney-owned properties are all sticking with 720p. That's what they call it. And the question is why? I guess a better question is, does anybody care? I personally care. The good thing about having a 4K TV is that it's going to do as good a job sampling up 720p content as it does with 1080i content. You see, I'm not worried so much about the lower amount of quality. It's just that a 720p picture on a 1080p television, and all HD televisions at this point are 1080p except the very, very inexpensive ones, that picture is going to look proportionally worse because you're not getting a nice clean upsampling out of it. It's always going to look a little blurry. It's always going to look a little grainy. And I sure would love it if the folks at Disney would change that, but I don't think they will, because I guess when it comes to HD, the truth is people don't care. It's like standard definition. There was a time people really tried to get the best quality out of that they possibly could. And then HD came along and people said, whatever, standard is standard. If it's not HD, it's not HD, and no one cares. And I tend to think maybe the same thing is true with 720p, although it's a shame. Well, it's a shame because there's a lot of good content on Disney-owned channels, on ABC, on ESPN, and on a very large television. You can really tell the difference in those channels compared to NBC or CBS channels, for example, that use 1080i. When you have a television, modern television, anything made in the last 5 to 6 years, it's going to do a very good job of combining the two different frames, they call them half frames, although that's not completely accurate, of 1080i into a nice, smooth picture. But unfortunately, they're never going to be able to do a great job on a plain old HD set with 720p. I guess the answer is, if you really do care, is to move up to 4K, which has a resolution of 2160p. To do a quick bit of math, and I don't want to turn you off, is that 2160p is double the resolution of 1080i. It's triple the resolution of 720p. So it's nice, even translation either way. I guess that's the final answer to it. And the hope is that at least that the content that's being created for ABC and ESPN is actually being done in 4K anyway, and so that in the future you'll just be able to see it at a higher quality level, more likely when you stream or get it in some other way. That's about it for the podcast for this week. Wow, that one went by pretty quick. I guess all that's left to say is I'll see you next week on the Solid Signal Podcast, and if you feel like it, check out blog.solidsignal.com and shop at solidsignal.com for all the best in electronics. Have a great one.